officially 6 o'clock. Time to open the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for June 27th, 2023. We will have roll call.
Ms. Orich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
And Mr. Wetbach, is there a need for executive session?
Yes, I would request that the board enter into a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, to discuss the potential discipline or dismissal of public employees in accordance with 121.22G2 to consider the sale of township property, in accordance with 121.22G3 to discuss pending or imminent litigation, and with 121.22G4 to discuss collective bargaining sessions.
I motion that we go into executive session for the reasons detailed by Administrator Weckbach.
I'll second.
No discussion from me.
No discussion?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like, we're going to commence at,
Executive session.
we're going to go to executive session at 6:01. Okay, it's officially 7:02, and we are going to start the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for January 27th, 2023. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Orich?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
And Mr. Weckbach, is there anything from executive session that we need to report?
Nothing to report.
Okay, and at this time, let's stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for our moment of meditation, last trustee meeting, we honored a proclamation for Phyllis McManaman, who had turned 100 years old. She passed away that night when we gave her that proclamation. So she was a wonderful person. Our thoughts and prayers, and we got to go to her 100th birthday party. It was very meaningful that she was here and she got to have that. So let's just say a little prayer for her family. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we have approval of minutes, Mr.
Thank you,
Day.
Board. I have the minutes that were sent to you for the regular Board of Trustees meeting on June 13th, 2023.
I motion that we approve the minutes from the June 13th, 2023 meeting.
I'll second those. Second that.
Any discussion?
None from me.
None.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. First item tonight is a presentation from the Fire Department. Chief Alan Walls will be swearing in some new employees.
Welcome, Chief. Good evening.
Good evening to the board, everyone here in attendance, and those of you who are online. As Administrator Weckbach said, we'll be swearing in some employees tonight, and actually it's going to be an employee. Lieutenant David Derbyshire couldn't be here, so tonight we're going to swear in our newest career firefighter, Jeremy Bogus. Jeremy, would you come forward, please, and stand right here. Jeremy is a 2020 graduate of LaSalle High School. He completed our recruit academy and obtained his firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and EMT shortly thereafter. He's currently in paramedic class at Cincinnati State, and he's been working here part-time at Colerain since June the 20th of 2022. He's going to be penned tonight by his dad, John Bogus. And at this time, I'm going to grab that mic and have you do some public speaking and introduce your family.
You got it. So up front, we got my dad, John Bogus. Next to him, we got my mom, Stephanie, my brother, Josh Bogus, and his fiancee, Lydia. In the back, we got my grandpa, Martin Bogus, my grandma, Chris Bogus, my grandma, Geraldine Dickhouse, and my grandpa, Donald Dickhouse.
All right, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Jerry Bogus,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio.
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio.
I'll abide by the Colerain Fire EMS
I'll abide by the Colerain Fire EMS
mission statement,
mission statement,
values,
values,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
standard operating guidelines,
and operating guidelines,
and the township's policies and procedures. I'll faithfully discharge the duties of firefighter paramedic
I'll faithfully
discharge the duties of firefighter paramedic
discharge the duties of firefighter paramedic
in and for Colerain Township,
in Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Warren County,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Welcome aboard.
Yes, Lancer.
Way to go, Mom and Dad.
I think I made him nervous because I told him there was a quiz.
All right, thank you, board. And while I get set up for the next presentation, certainly if anybody was here just for that and would like to step out at this point, this might be a good time to do that.
But you're welcome to stay.
But you are more than
Before
welcome
we
to-
leave, Mr. Battalion Chief Eric Dower is in the room, and I think you were a celebrity on WCPO the other night. And from what I heard, you did an excellent job for those out there, that they came out there to watch your fire recruits go through training. Yes. And it went very well for Colerain Township. Good PR. Thank you. Thank you for being cute as you are. Give him something to make fun of him about.
Jeff, I think that's, is that still on? Is that one still on?
All right. Okay, so the projector decided to turn off on me seconds after I turned it on, which is new.
I can hear it warming up.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's working on it.
Okay.
I don't know, you might want
Turn it off and turn
to
it
turn it off and turn it
That's
back
what I
on
did. So
again.
here, it looks like it's coming back, so. It just sometimes works with you and sometimes doesn't, right? So bear with me a moment here. So to introduce this next presentation item, for those of you that do or do not recall, at the middle of last year, we went out to bid and selected a vendor to install some solar panels over at 4300 Colerain. We thought it would be good 6 months into the program to just kind of touch base to see how it's doing and whether or not it's performing as expected or not. And so that's the purpose of this presentation, is just to provide that update. So 60 solar panels were installed. Once we were able to work through all the different permitting processes and what have you with Duke Energy, that project actually went online on 1/11/2023, which is a really important date to keep in mind for something later in the presentation. But despite it being ready to go, it did take a little bit longer than expected with Duke to get all the different sign-offs that we needed. Total cost of the project was $99,000, and that is what it came in at. It was estimated to produce 31,000 kilowatt hours per year, and that's going to result in about a savings of $8,000 per year. So if you do the simple math, in about 13 years, the entire system would be paid off, making the 25-year guaranteed lifespan that came with the system allow us to have reduced energy for about 12 years. That little chart there shows by month performance. So the red bar is the actual kilowatt hour production. The blue is the projected. So January was not the best. We are missing 11 days of January, but besides that, it probably still would have came in a little less than what it was anticipated to be for the month of January. But I believe each month after that, the production on the facility has actually exceeded what was projected to have occurred. So this is what the number looks like in aggregate. Those of you that know me, I do not like graphs and charts that don't have true zero as the y-axis. So I know different folks feel differently about that, but that's how I am. That's why the numbers look very similar, and they are. So it's performing about 429 total kilowatt hours better than projected. That's despite the slow start in January and despite it not having the full month of January on. So year to date, it is doing exactly how we thought. It's going to, year to date save us about $4,000, and if it continues on with that trajectory over time, especially as rates with Duke and others continue to increase, we should continue to see savings that exceed that and hopefully see a return on our investment even sooner than expected. Last slide, this was on the agenda packet, but this is why I mentioned that 1/11/23 date. With the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed at the federal level, there's now a clause in there that allows any system that was turned on and became active starting in 2023 or later to be eligible for a 30% reimbursement from the federal government. So starting in 2024, we will be eligible to apply for that 30% reimbursement. Should that occur, that would take about $33,000 off of the total project cost, and thereby reduce the number of years that it would take for us to break even on the investment. So having said that, just wanted to provide that update and happy to entertain any questions or conversation from the rest of the board.
I beat you up pretty good on this over the past week. I think I'll just
Okay.
save it. I never could understand why they're on the east side of the building.
Yeah, and they're on the east side of the building because that was the roof that had the most support and had the greatest surface area in order to be able to fit all 60 panels. Ideally, you put them on the south side because the south side is going to have the most direct sunlight over a 24-hour period in the northern hemisphere. When south side is not available, you look to the next best option. In our case, it was the east. Sometimes that's the west. It's almost never the north unless you have a roof that is slanted in a way that the north is the only way that you can get panels on there. So
We talked about it as an investment. I saw a commercial, and a lot of banks are between 5% and 6% on CDs right now. So if we took that 100,000 and put it into a CD, it would have a very similar return.
If we were allowed to put it into a CD.
Which would be no tax which would not have tax like a normal resident is.
Very restricted in what we're allowed to invest our dollars.
I think that money was out of the general fund, the 100,000.
Yep.
And then you multiply that out over the years, I think the panels would have a hard time. I did have a question though. When those are done, what do you do with them?
When you're done with them,
I mean,
at
when
the
they're
end of the
worn out,
25-year
how do you environmentally dispose of those?
I don't know the answer to that question. I would imagine that they could either be sold off and recycled in parts, or my suspicion is there will be a whole new industry at that point that's dealing with that for
Right.
lots of different folks. Because I think solar panels really started to come into the zeitgeist in large effect in the late 2010s. So, there were some folks that were in that space earlier in the 2000s when it was newer technology, and there were certainly more lucrative tax credits and things like that on the market. At one point, there was certain states that would actually offer you 4 times the rate that they would have charged you for the electric if you had solar. So they would pay you 4 times.
And that said, including the $30,000, what I mentioned to you, I consider to be a bailout. It's just government money thrown after government money, and I mean, we're there. I hope they're successful. They're obviously on the building now, but that's why I voted no on it last year. And if it was brought to us today, I would vote the same way. I haven't seen anybody up and down, as I mentioned at our June 14th meeting last year. I haven't seen any businesses install them, and most people that I know took advantage of a big tax credit to install them. I want that technology to be successful, but only if it comes up organically through the marketplace without subsidy is it going to truly be successful. As long as governments at various levels are subsidizing it, it's never going to be developed the way anything else gets developed.
Sure. And there are some businesses in our community that do have them. We do track that, and I think we average somewhere between 4 and 10 solar permits a month. Now, granted, most of them are residential, but
And they take advantage of the tax credits.
But I am aware of some of the businesses that are, and some of those are taking advantage of different types of financing that are available for those that wouldn't be available through a bank or through whatever
Right.
else there might be. So
Anyway,
yep.
we've had a hearty, robust discussion on
yes.
it, so those are all my comments. Thank you.
Yep.
So as we stand today, we're clearly on the track of saving $8,000 per year.
Yeah, and that 8,000 assumes that rates are what they were when we installed the system. As we know, rates are a little higher at this point than they were last year, and unless we start to see rates come down drastically, I would feel comfortable that $8,000 return on investment is going to happen year over year.
And I understand Mr. Unger's comments about it being a bailout or federal money, but I certainly, if the federal government is offering the $33,000, I want it, and that would be something to talk about. Is found money kind of in the capital reserve fund.
Sure.
When that comes around, because this, I think one thing this board has talked about, and I've been I've stressed an awful lot, is yes, we're taking care of now, but we also want to look through a deeper time horizon so that we can have these issues addressed in a more cash basis, so that we don't end up with borrowing in order to pay for it. But again, this is one thing when it came up, I didn't know that all that much about. The research I said indicated that that it would pay off. Clearly, interest rates were like at 1% when we put them in, so there's been a little bit of a change in the macroeconomic status of the country, but still, what amounts to 8.25% a year is still pretty competitive amount. So.
Yep.
I was excited to see the projections were what we were anticipating, because you told me about what you put this on your house personally, and you have been seeing these significant results. So, and then plus with the extra 30% credit, I think we've done a nice job with the money. Thank you.
And from what I understand, the projections were based upon east side placement versus south side, right?
No, it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was based off east side. Yep.
Sorry, that sounds like east side
Yeah.
Cincinnati kind of thing, but yeah.
And for those watching at home, our building has a great southern exposure that faces Springdale Road, where there's a big empty roof.
Yep.
I'm done.
Okay.
Next item.
Sure. So next item is public input. So I don't know if we've been collecting those separately, but this is specific to the police levy.
If anybody's here that signed in for the public input, you can.
For the police levy, right? Not for,
please-
yeah, police,
Or anybody that wants to speak to the issue.
yeah, then citizens' addresses after.
Right, so I don't know if anybody signed up for citizen address that wants to speak up now. Okay.
Yep, that's right now.
And you are? My name is Kurt Garhoff. Okay. I'm just gonna put on here for the police levy.
Evening.
Thank you, I appreciate this opportunity.
Oh, sorry, can we turn on the mic there? Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate my name's Kurt Verhoff. I live in Colerain Township, obviously, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to address you on the forthcoming potential police levy. I sent a letter to each of you today, and I'm going to read that letter because I would like it to be part of the public record. So, and this discusses the fact that we have 3 different proposals: 3 mills, 4.65 mills, and 4.99 mills, is my understanding. Our purpose in writing to you is to urge you to exercise extreme restraint in burdening Colerain Township residents with additional taxes. Every avenue must be explored to keep budget growth to an absolute minimum. The tremendous increases in the cost of food, energy, sewer, and waste rates have negatively impacted residents over the last 2 years. Electric utility costs alone are up over 30% so far this year. The recently defeated Northwest Local School District bond levy was a huge proposed increase that will undoubtedly return to the ballot. Hamilton County is asking for more for the zoo and is going to be looking for increases to cover bridge, viaduct costs, convention center, and stadium upgrades. The appetite for more taxes is going to exceed the ability for Colerain residents to pay and will force a decision to reduce standard of living or to move to neighboring areas with less tax burden. Providing for our safety forces, along with roads, is a core function of the township that must be balanced with the environment we are currently experiencing. It is impractical to consider building a new police station if there is less expensive options available. There is a large amount of open retail space at Northgate Mall, with the former Sears building in particular being particularly attractive since it offers ample space, indoor garage for patrol cars, and attached parking structure. The people you represent, retirees, students, and families of all types, are directly impacted by all of which is described above and more. Undoubtedly, we are reaching a tipping point in which the choice to remain is so costly as to force Colerain residents to consider moving. A fact amply demonstrated by the exodus of families and businesses from high-tax jurisdictions such as California, New York, and Illinois. As you debate the amounts of new property taxes to levy upon Colerain Township residents, we ask that you take into account our concerns and the concerns of our fellow citizens. Before voting on these taxes, we would ask that you meet with the community to share your perspectives on the future direction of our township. One other important thing to note is property taxes are going to be reassessed here in 2023, and considering the increase in property values, it's very likely that the tax increase will go up by an additional 20%. This is really unacceptable. I do want to say we've been polling people on social media, and there have been a number of other great ideas, like using the abandoned Lincoln automobile dealership on Colerain. The suggestion that we build a new building for the officers is really over the top. So that's all I have. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there was another gentleman with his hand up. Did you want to come speak?
Not on the police levy. I have other issues.
Okay, did you sign a citizen's address?
Yes.
Okay. So is there anybody else for the police issue? I guess that closes.
So next item is citizen address.
Okay, let me get my glasses on. Deborah Eichenlab? Did I say it right?
I said Eichenlaub.
Eichenlab, okay.
I am Deborah Eichenlaub. I'm a resident of Colerain Township. I am here to address the coyote situation. We are on June the 15th of this year at 1 a.m., my husband took my little 5-pound dog out to potty. It jumped the fence, took my dog with floodlights on. I'm sorry.
I understand.
Out of nowhere, it jumped the fence, and it grabbed her by the neck. She put out one squeal, and over the fence, he went with her into the woods. Since then, there has been other neighbors lose their pets. A lady around the street on Wincanton lost 2 over a 6-foot fence. They are also, I can show you the proof right here. They are also running around during the day. Since this has occurred, several pets have been taken. Another down the street had his Yorkie taken. He found his little head 4 doors down in the front yard. On Sunday, June the 25th, it was reported that a pack of 4 were running down Springdale Road by Pippin Road. They have gotten bigger, they've gotten bolder, and they're showing no fear of humans. With Lake Gloria removing all the wooded area for apartments and several other places clearing out wooded areas, they have been run into the residential areas. I have been in contact with the Ohio Predators and Prey. They have informed me they cannot shoot in residential areas. I have also started getting signatures for trappers to come in, trap them, take them out of here, and euthanize them. And there has been no luck with that. Something needs to be done. My neighbors that have pets cannot take their pets out to potty unless they are right there following them because of the coyotes. I'm sorry. The sad thing is they are coming out during the day. They had their babies last month, which we know, and they are looking for food. We do not want our pets to be their food. It's also gotten dangerous for little children because they are out during the day. God forbid a child would be taken. I'm asking that licensed trappers be allowed to come in, catch them, and euthanize them so that we can enjoy our yards with our children and pets. Please look at this the way your Colerain Township residents are looking at it. One pet taken is one too many. We fear for our pets and children. We ask that something be done to get them out of Colerain Township before residents decide to take it upon themselves and start shooting and killing them. Let me see here. I know my husband and I are devastated that our baby girl is gone, and there's nothing we can do. So please help your residents solve this solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Moore.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't have my paper that I typed out, so it might be a little jumpy here. On March the 14th, I had requested a change for the November 15th, 2022 minutes. And then on May 9th, I requested several changes for March 14th meeting. And I did not get any response from anybody, so I was wondering what the board intends to do about that. It says in the Ohio Open Meetings Act, a public body must keep full and accurate minutes of its meetings. Those minutes are not required to be verbatim transcript of the proceedings, but they must include enough facts and information to permit the public to understand and appreciate the rationale behind the public body's decisions. The Ohio Supreme Court has held that minutes must include more than a record of roll call votes, and that minutes are inadequate when they contain inaccuracies that are not corrected. A public body cannot rely on sources other than their approved minutes to argue that their minutes contain a full and accurate record of their proceedings. So, if possible, could I get a response on what will be done? Also, I noticed on the budget that for the lighting assessment fund, which is pretty odd, it's got for 2024, it has a balance to begin with $19,039.32. However, there's no projected expenditures and evidently no expected revenue. And I'd like to know why. In 2022, there was a beginning balance, which was the beginning balance and receipts, and then there were expenditures, and then there was an end of the year balance. But 2024 just has a projected balance for January the 1st. So I'd like to know what's going on with that. Are you just gonna not pay the lighting assessments anymore? Also, I'd like to know, in the policies and procedure book, it says about public records, remedies for failure to comply. Any employee of Colerain Township, included the designated record custodian for each Colerain Township agency, who willfully fails to fulfill a public record request by failing to adhere to the policy may be subject to disciplinary action as established within the Colerain Township personnel policy. And there is nothing that is suggested as a disciplinary action. So I wondered what the board's plan would be, since you've had that occur, that public records have not been fulfilled, what the board intends to do about the action of them not being fulfilled. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Bryant? Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. I was here at your last meeting, and then I left, and I know you called my name, but I was told by a couple of officers that the problem that I was here for was going to be taken care of. Well, as of now, it has been to a point, but not completely. May I approach?
Sure.
You can thumb through those, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. The residence I'm talking about is on Winning Road. From my understanding, he used to live on Armadillo and was evicted by Vinebrook because they were tired of dealing with this gentleman and the complaints and whatever else, fines or whatever else they may have incurred. Well, now he's moved his,
I'm going to steal a second of your time. What these are is pictures of a car and a truck and a bunch of junk parked up in the grass. And when you're finished, I'm going to ask you to send these to our administrator, just so people know what you have. So please add a minute to his time.
well, the gentleman, he's brought his business to Winning. Now, I say business because he's got a sign in his truck that says, I'll take your crap, and got his phone number. But if you look at the first word, he didn't spell scrap right.
SRCAP.
And then you'll see in one of the pictures, they did come out, tagged the truck, and tagged the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he got it off the street. But if you look in one of the other pictures where he put it, in his side yard, in the grass, to where his neighbor can walk out his side door and look at this truck full of trash and junk. I contacted the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. Neither one of these trailers have license plates or working lights. And if you'd noticed by the pictures of the junk, the trailers are overloaded. Each trailer, no matter what size, has to be rated on how much they can haul. And they have to be strapped down properly. They have to have safety chains. So if you notice one of the black truck, the bumper is about ready to fall off, and he's got a bumper hitch. And the safety chains are just laying on the bumper. They're not hooked up. The white truck does have has a Reese hitch, and the safety chains look like they're hooked up, but they're overloaded. Now, according to the DMV, which I sent a picture of what the DMV requires, they have to have lights, they have to have be registered, and to register it, whether you buy a kit from Harbor Freight and put it together yourself, or build one yourself, or buy one, they have to pass certain regulations. And to pass the regulations, they have to be able to haul such a certain amount of weight. If you get a trailer and you don't know how much the trailer weighs, you're supposed to take it, get it weighed, and present the weight sticker to the DMV when you register it. He's parking on your property. If you notice, he's parking in between the sidewalk and the street in the grass. He does not own that. Now, he has to maintain it, but he doesn't own it. And that's illegal to park that way. And parking in your yard is illegal. It violates your zoning laws. I have to pass this place every day, 2 or 3 times. And to look at this, and the neighbors have to look at it, it's pathetic. I want to congratulate you on the work that you all have done on Laura Linda. I see that it took a while to get that cleaned up, and it is looking nice. I saw them last week, or this weekend. They were looked like they was about ready to wrap it up. on the cleanup. So I do appreciate that, but I don't want to see this house becoming to be another issue. Now, I know some of these residents are on your border. I don't want to, I'm trying to pick one battle to fight in this war. You all know the house on Miles Road that's got all the refrigerators and stuff. He cleans them out, brings them back, cleans them out, and that's an issue. But this house, it's bringing down the property values of everybody around. And I'm sorry, I'll quit there.
That's fine. I took a little bit of your time. Did you have anything else?
Nope, that's it. I'd like to see this problem solved. So,
And can you get these pictures, I guess, to Mr. Weckbach? He will get with you, and there's a good number of them there, so.
Mr. Bryant, could you jot down your phone number on here? I'd like to talk to you after I'll call you tomorrow about it.
It's funny, that truck, I went past Emerald, took the same pictures of that
just
truck.
A contact phone number would
Just
be
moved
great.
from one to the other.
Yes, so what those pictures were for those watching at home is a picture of a truck with a trailer and overloaded with junk parked up in the grass between the curb and the sidewalk on, what street is that?
Winning.
Okay.
right on the corner.
Right.
And some items out in the front yard. Was it the front yard that are for sale?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he brings the junk home, puts it out in his front yard, covered with a tarp, and takes it off and puts for sale.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention, and I'm sure Mr. Weckbach will have our code enforcement officer over there to check on it.
Well, like I said, they did tag the one truck and trailer, but if you saw in the picture, he moved to the side of his house, parked it in the yard. And when his neighbor comes out his side door, what does he see?
Well,
He sees that.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, administrative reports? Oh, no, we got a citizen, no, yes.
Was there somebody else
No,
that
I was
signed
gonna
up
say,
to
no, we're-
speak?
No, I think,
Everybody got to speak?
I don't have any more. Okay.
I don't see any out there.
Okay, for administrative reports, I was actually going to keep them relatively brief and remind folks that July 3rd is our giant 4th of July fireworks festivities that Colerain has annually. So I hope to see all of you all out there starting around, I think it's 5 o'clock at Colerain Park. The Chamber is going to be hosting an event. It's a vintage baseball game where they're going to have the Vintage Reds team out to play. And there's going to be a clinic for kids to learn a little bit about, baseball and how it started and work on their skills. And then later that evening, pop on over to Drew Campbell Field right here, right next door to 4200 Springdale Road, where we're going to have bands, we're going to have food trucks, games, bounce houses, all kinds of different things, and maybe a couple of other surprises as well for folks. So encourage everybody to come out, and then hopefully around 10 o'clock, it'll be dark enough that we'll start lighting them off.
Well, the big ticket item would be you in a dunking booth?
Well, that was one of the surprises.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's a new
Sorry.
thing this year. So.
I think that would have more people come if they want to throw anything.
So
at
we're going to
me.
have some key members of Township staff and members of the community that will be in a dunk booth. So if you are so inclined to let out your frustrations toward me and my ability to perform, certainly stop out. It'd be interesting to see who raises the most money through the dunking booth. Who's
How
the
much
most
does it
popular.
cost?
$5 for 3 throws. So-
Okay.
and that was all I had for administrative reports for this evening.
Okay, trustee reports?
Sure. We have a lot of viewers of various ages, and one of them, it's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Kyle. And perhaps you might know somebody that could help with the coyote problem as well. I've received a lot of phone calls lately, and a lot of them, it should be an exciting meeting in a couple weeks. I've received a lot of calls from folks on Rayanne about various issues going on, and in fact, for those that I've responded to, which I believe is everyone, I did drive the length of it all the way down to the end where the gravel lot turnaround is down there, and I've given it my best first drive-by assessment. Thank you, Glenna. There's, for whatever reason, I don't know if the light poles are a little bit too close to the edge of pavement on Stone Creek, but that's probably the third or fourth one I know of where people just seem to get up in the grass and drive right over them, and To anyone that's wondering, Stone Creek, just about 150 feet west of Colerain Avenue, that light pole, we forward those to Duke, and they do get out and fix them, and I don't think it takes that long. But I did have another call from someone that wanted to know what is going next to the Goodyear, which is just east of here on Springdale Road, and that is SinFed is building a new credit union building. Thanks to Tiffany for somebody dumped a bathroom fixtures along Sheed Road, and she got right out and got those cleaned up with our Public Works. The coyote problem, what can we do about that?
So, some of the questions there, I guess not knowing exactly where the issues are. If it's on private property, I think that there are some limits on what we could do. We could reach out to the dog warden and see what.
Is it
they
the dog
have
warden or would it
there.
be the game warden? Because I have our own game warden.
Dog warden, game warden. ODNR actually has a whole pamphlet with information on what to do and who to call if there are coyote issues. So
I'm
we
on
could
the
certainly
Ring
push that
doorbell,
out there
and
as well.
I get a lot of coyote spottings, and especially where I live, they've been in my yard too.
I've seen them as well, and I
Yeah,
don't know
so
what's
I-
bringing them out.
Ironically enough, a township attorney and I were talking before the meeting about coyotes, and you're not able to actively hunt them without a permit. But if you are in a situation that is not safe, you are able to take action
okay.
against the coyotes. Not necessarily something that anyone will want to do. However, as a reminder, in townships where there are not allowed to be laws that restrict firing
He's going to
weapons
tell
on
me
your
I
own
can't get
property.
my gun out in my backyard. No,
I'm just going to say this was a discussion. This is not legal advice for anyone to rely on.
Good qualifier. So, but a few years ago, we put out a bunch of information through Circle. It was mainly just regurgitated ODNR information, so we can look to put some more of that out as well. So,
And I think here in Colerain Township, we probably have plenty of residents that have dealt with that issue in the past, and I've got my own ideas how to dispose of them, but I'd certainly be interested in hearing anybody else's.
yes.
So that's all my comments.
I had talked to Bruce too about this a couple weeks ago. I mean, our deer population is down by at least 50 to 60%. I think that includes Colerain Ross in Okeana, so they are hungry because our deer population is definitely down. So they are scouting about, and I have had more and more calls about the coyote. But I will call our ex-game warden to see what our legal way to trap these guys are.
Yeah.
And actually on Squirrel's Nest, a Ring camera caught a mountain lion, not a bobcat, a mountain lion. I don't know if anybody else has gotten any reports. It's got the long tail that shows the spots on it. It came between the two garages. Yeah, I was going to talk to you about that one too. And Amarella, that's sad. We got to do something about them. I mean, that truck, I took those pictures on Amarella, and now he's moved over there. We've got to find out to do something on that. And then I want everybody to have a safe and happy 4th of July. I know our firefighters and our police will be out in full force for this safety weekend. So just be careful and be safe.
And to close the loop, I was able to pull up the ODNR pamphlet, and it suggests that if you see coyotes, to call 1-800-WILDLIFE.
1-800-WILDLIFE.
Yes. And they've left.
Yeah.
So this is obviously, as a pet owner, this has gotten me upset as well. I don't know. The one street was mentioned was Wincanton. I don't think that Miss Eichenlaw lives on Wincanton, but yeah, I know that one time in North College Hill when I was on council, we actually, but again, a city has a lot more maneuverability. We actually passed an ordinance where we could where we could bow hunt the deer in North College Hill. Yeah, and they were tagged or something like that. But I do want to take care of this issue. I mean, it's just awful. It's just awful to hear about. We had a couple comments regarding the police forecast, and I agree wholeheartedly. The one thing that has always been kind of going mind is sustainability. I hate the idea that that these costs are going up and that taxes seem to be going up everywhere along the way. The one thing that Mr. Weckbach and I did discuss, and I think he got it maybe from a different trustee, not sure where the source was, but with the property values going up, when they certify the amount, it's an amount. So if the property values tripled, which isn't going to happen, but if they tripled in the new, it would still be certified at the amount. It would just be a less of a millage number. Is that correct?
So the millage, and this is what's tricky, millage is based off of the assessments at that moment in time. So the millage would still read as 3 mills, but it would act in a different way on
Okay.
the property values. But ultimately, what the auditor's office has told us is that it would not raise more than that dollar amount that it's certified at. So with these certifications we got back from the auditor's office, a 3 mil levy will only bring in, I think, what was that, just north of $4 million, or so on and so forth. So.
Okay, and that was a concern of mine, is to hit that we know the knowns, or the unknowns in that case. And the reason that there are 3 is that I felt, and I think my fellow trustees must have agreed, because they're there. We have 3 options to choose from. I think we should debate this as much as possible, because it is an important issue. The one thing that came up a number of times is the idea of a new police, a physical police building. One thing that again, I keep stressing over and over again is I don't want to increase the campus size of Colerain. I think there are some options. But even if, let's say in a perfect world, we could use the Sears, it would still need some retrofitting, or wherever we would go would need retrofitting for the police to be in there, which needs to be accounted for at some point.
And most of the properties on Colerain Avenue are going to cost half, if not more, of what would be budgeted for a retrofit and remodel. So Sears, for example, is listed for sale at $5 million.
Right. And it just to show that we are examining every possible option when it comes to that. The one question about the lighting fund, I was a little unsure. I don't know if you have
If you turn to page, let me see here.
I've got the projected fund detail, pages 63, 60.
Yep. On page 63, when I look at it, it has a balance of $166,000, estimated receipts of $151 for 317, with total available resources with an anticipated spend of $165. The numbers that were referenced were likely referenced for the next fund on the list, which is the CDB Sidewalk Assessment Fund. So I think it was just a misread of the packet.
Okay, because I did have some questions with that. With regard to disciplinary policy for not following a public records request, I think that has to be contextual. Mr. Bryant's complaint, I don't think there's a person here that disagrees with this. The one thing I will stress is that what we found out with Laura Linda is that this is a process. And, as uncomfortable as it is, it should be a process. I should not be able to show up at your property and say your neighbors have complained, we're going to seize things, or we're going to bill you. Now, that said, people take advantage of that, and you have sometimes places that are full of just all kinds of stuff, and not speaking specifically of any one case. The problem with our freedom, we've always heard it, it comes with responsibilities. And some of us try very, very hard to live up to those responsibilities. Some of us come up short. In my own instance, I feel like I'm coming up short now because Sunday when the storm hit, it pulled my gutter completely off. And I've called probably 40 different gutter people, and it's not fixed yet. And you can go by and take a picture, it's not fixed yet, but I'm trying to get it fixed. So all those of you who are watching that are gutter specialists, please call me, I guess. But it is a process. What I've seen very much disappoints me with the winning road, and I think that once you're going to be getting the pictures, and we'll address that as well. And everybody enjoy, please. I call it Old-Timers game. I guess that's politically inappropriate, but the throwback game, is that what it is now, or vintage game? Yeah, vintage game is fantastic. I loved it. It was a great turnout last year, and Mr. Morovic didn't know what was going to happen, because there could have been one person there, and we've never had it before, and it was certainly a huge crowd. It was an awesome part of the holiday. It was 1 billion degrees, but that's all right. And then the fireworks have just become such a almost legendary status. And I know I said this last meeting, and I'll repeat it again. With some of the advancements we've made with police, we cut overtime in half this month. That's 800 hours of police overtime off the books. And for the 3rd/4th of July celebration, not only is there only going to be one person on overtime, one officer who has, I think, some specialized tasks that he needs to do, but we will also have, the regular patrol focus too. So years all come together. But if you remember 3 or 4 years ago, we had an incident which was largely, I think, almost like a panic in the mall. I don't think what was reported actually happened, but we had to then get the police from the fireworks venue to the mall, which doesn't seem like a big lift, but when you've got thousands of people in there, it is. And for those of you attending the fireworks, police and fire, and all three of us have been down in the, I guess, situation room to see what they do, are so on top of this. I mean, they actually know if, I remember, I don't know which year it was, somebody didn't have enough water and they kind of went down, and we had an officer there like that. And it's amazing the attention to detail that our police and fire and administration and public works and everything has for those fireworks. It's a good family event, and you're taken care of there. I've never seen anything run as smoothly. So kudos to them, and I expect nothing less from them for this time out. So thank you in advance to all those folks that are going to be working hard in that 1,000-degree weather, and I know that we'll have waters for them and music and.
Yep. And to clarify on my earlier comments, I was able to pull up the chamber event starts at 4:15. So from 4:15 to 5 is the clinic for anyone of any age to learn more about baseball and learn some of the tricks of the trade from the folks that are acting like they're still in 1869. So. And then at 5 o'clock is the national anthem and first pitch for the actual game.
I think we're throwing out the first pitch again.
Yeah, I'm going to brush you back.
I threw out the strike. And before I forget, I did meet with Bridget Kelly's office, the auditors, and they are in a conundrum because they're waiting for the budget. And for our taxes being assessed, what is proposed is 1 year, and we are triannually. So we assess our taxes over a 3-year period. The government is trying to do it over a year. So they have not voted on that in the budget. But what they did send out was all the commercial, industrial, and 4 families. And the significant hike, which was the most expensive hike that they sent out, were 4 families. And that was about a 20% increase. Industrial and commercial did not see that kind of percentage. That's what came from their office. So that hopefully we won't see nearly as 20.
And I wish I would have known that. And as Dan always says, we can't talk to each other during the week.
I had
because I want to get after, the one thing I want to get after the auditor's office is, are those homes that are maybe used as rentals or not primary homes?
long discussion. So
Okay.
about this, because of the entities, buying these houses and selling them to their next LLC for $0. There's nothing the county has got on to do that. So it's going to have to be something, we're going to have to take it our township wide, because we're going to have to research it. And I asked her all the kind of questions for the rental registration. I asked her the percentages, and she said, she just went like this: they can have no control over it.
And that's fine. If we can provide a list, which we've done before, of those homes that are not primary residents, but taking the primary residence tax credit.
Right, there's
Or
that.
rentals taking an even worse, a homestead credit or something like that.
And they keep devaluating their property,
Well,
so that's another.
That's in this bucket, and
Yeah.
we can talk about that, but I want to get, this is the second or third time I voted on a tax levy, and the one thing I want are the people, I get it, it's a problem, but the people that aren't paying their fair share first, I want to hold them accountable somehow. And what Ms. Ulrich is talking about are the LLCs, and it's incredible the way they have this figured out, where they sell it from one LLC to another that reduces the property value on the books, so that their property taxes then are less than what we pay. And there are 7 or 8 different shells that it goes through. I know that that's something that we can never even hope to address at a township level. That's more of a state level issue. And I know that State Senator Bill Blessing is, he's avid about trying to get this thing straight. Because again, I mean, if we keep asking people for taxes, we need the people over here that are figuring out the loopholes to pay their fair share before we ask other people to. So, yeah, I went a little bit astray there, but
Sorry, I had to say.
I know, because I keep emailing, I keep trying to push with Miss Kelly to get a meeting, and I can't get one.
She actually had COVID, and her assistant Paula, and if you can't get in with Bridget, get in with Paula. She knows she's
Okay.
a right-hand person. It's extremely.
So it wouldn't be a violation of sunshine law if you gave me Paula's email and address, phone number.
Oh, let me see if she gave me her card.
Okay. And then the last thing, the Reds game, yeah, absolutely. The clinic you said is 4:15. I understand there'll be Red Scouts in attendance trying to get some pitching prospects.
I
That's
cannot
actually true, I
confirm
think.
or deny, so.
Thank you so much, and I apologize for the lengthiness, but the issue with the taxes and the homes has become a triggering issue for me. Everybody ought to pay the same, you know? All right, thank you.
All right, next up is new business, and the first item in new business will be presented by Chief Alan Walls.
Chief, welcome back.
Good evening, and thank you. Yes, tonight we have a motion here to authorize the Township Administrator to purchase portable radios from Motorola for a cost of $462,112.20, and we recommend adoption of the motion.
A motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to purchase portable radios from Motorola for $462,112.20.
I'll second that.
Discussion. Now, we just did this for the police, and explain.
So much the same as the police department. What we have here is we have two different radios. We have the APX 6000s that will need to be replaced because they've been deemed to be no longer serviceable, certified as intrinsically safe, or have available parts for repairs by Motorola. In addition, we have XTS 5000 radios that will no longer work on the communication system effective July 31st of 2023. So I, for instance, have an XTS 5000 radio. So in about 6 weeks, it'll basically be a expensive paperweight that I could set on my desk. Unfortunately, is much the same as the police department, we're at the mercy of Motorola, for lack of a better way to put it. Because of the number of radios that we're purchasing, which is 100, we get a little bit better price. So for us, that price per radio is actually $1,914.75, as opposed to $3,595 per radio. Now, we do save cost in that we don't need to replace the lapel mics. We can take those off the old radios, and we don't need to replace the antennas because we can take those off the old radios as well. But that total cost then, we have link layer authentication, we have a 7-year essential service plan, we have baud trunking, we have the rugged radio exterior finish because we go into austere environments, you might say, with our radios. Smart zone operation, it has the impact green housing, device programming and engraving services. So there's a number of things that go into that price. Now we're recommending the lease, which is a 5-year lease. With that, we'll actually save upwards of approximately, I have $12,000. In fact, we found out it would be closer to $42,000 because for the first 7 years of these radios' life, we won't need the service plan that costs us $15,000 a year that we currently purchase. The reason we purchase that is that $5,000 radio, if it gets dropped from a height, it gets damaged in some way, shape, or form, we take it to Mobilecom, and that $5,000 radio is replaced free of charge. So, not that we purposely try to damage radios, sometimes in heat, training, heights, and what have you. 3 of those pays for the cost of the service agreement. However, that's included with this. We could at any point in time, though, pay that lease off ahead of time, which we did the previous time that we purchased radios in 2014. So the radio is an essential piece of our gear. and with no means of communication, it's a serious safety concern.
So are you going to spend that $462 upon receipt of the radios, or is that spread out over 5 payments?
That's spread out over 5 payments, and we don't make the first payment until July of next year, even though we'll take receipt of the radios this year.
Right, I'm looking at that on page, whatever page this is. But I see that on Schedule B, is what
Right.
it's called.
Yep. So that's $92,422.44 per year for 5 years, for that total cost then of
$462, $112.
to $112.20, correct.
Okay.
This is,
Go ahead.
this is a significant price tag, and it's frustrating. Probably more frustrating for you and Chief Cordy than for me, because there's no competitor, and they can pull the rug out from us at any point in time. But, you know, as a history buff, I like to learn from history, and we know from 9/11 that we need radios that are connected, that are interoperable, and, you know, $462,000 is a lot of money until you talk about how many lives it could save. And certainly, I wish at some point there would be some type of competitor that would make this more of an open market. But until then, I'm prepared to support this because it supports the lives of the people that are keeping us safe.
Absolutely.
And not that this plays in any factor, the price that we have is good until July 1st, and it goes up from there.
Of course.
Of course.
They're already working on the next generation, too.
I don't have any other questions.
That's So you want to make a motion?
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. The next items on the agenda will be presented by Lieutenant Dorfline from the Police Department.
Is this considered overtime?
I will say, though, Alan didn't have to move the microphone as he normally does.
I know, I just,
Want to make sure that's out there. I'm sorry? Thank you, thank you. Resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement. 2563 Ambassador, 3190 Banning Road, 2845 Brampton Drive, 2919 Crest Road, 8241 Georgiana Drive, 9610 Gibraltar Drive, 2909 Greenbrook Lane, 8298 Jackie's Drive, 9845 Laura Linda Drive, 9936 Laura Linda Drive, 9871 Marino Drive, 10,013 Marino Drive, 3484 Niagara Street, 3251 Orangeburg Court, 9552 Pippin Road, 9718 Pippin Road, 10,436 Pottinger Road, 2464 Roosevelt Avenue, 2637 Royal Glen Drive, 3619 Sandra Lynn Drive, 2409 Shone Drive, 2856 Sheldon Avenue, 2668 Springdale Road, and finally 2762 Wheatfield Drive. Recommended adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to adopt the resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement if the properties listed within the resolution and just described by Lieutenant Dorfline.
I will second it.
discussion?
None.
Any?
No, and I've heard from, yes, I guess that's yes.
Yes, that would be, yeah.
No, but is really actually yes. So I've heard from a number of people, you know, when they come by and do these uncontrolled vegetation, you're not going to get diagonal cuts up and down the lawn. It's going to be quick and dirty just to get it cut down. And usually it's so high that it's probably not going to be even. And I get that, but it's the best we can do. And, you know, it's in a perfect world, everybody takes care of their own grass, or you take care of your neighbors if there's an issue. But some of these are frequent violators, and I've got no issue going out and having it cut, charging them for it.
Mr. Baker?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle 2510 Highwood Lane, a 2008 wide Acura MDX. recommended adoption of the resolution.
A motion, we declare a junk motor vehicle at 2510 Highwood Lane as described.
I'll second.
Discussion?
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Resolution declaring junk motor vehicle at 2558 Impala Drive. This one is a 2010 blue Honda Odyssey. I recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion that we adopt the resolution declaring that the vehicle located at 2558 Impala Drive be declared a junk motor vehicle.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
None?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3001 Niagara Street. There's actually two vehicles on this 2001 maroon GMC Savannah and a 1987 red Chevy Altimaster. And this will be a recommendation to adoption of the resolution.
I motion that we adopt the resolution declaring those two vehicles at 3001 Niagara Street as junk motor vehicles.
Second.
Discussion?
The Utilimaster has been there forever, and the guy's gone out and bought plates and moved it in the driveway and back into the yard, and go get it.
Got it.
It's been there a long time. Right? Right. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3147 Niagara Street, 2003 black Chevy Tahoe. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I motion we approve the resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3147 Niagara Street as described.
Second.
Discussion?
None.
None?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. And up next is Assistant Administrator Tiffany Mays to present an item out of the Public Services Department.
Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
Next item on the agenda is under Public Services, item A motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement amendment with Choice One Engineering for the Springdale Road Sidewalk Project for $29,500. Information on this item can be found in your packet on page 53. Essentially, what we're doing here is the plans went through stage one and have been approved. We did a site walk last week, I believe it was, and they are now ready to do preliminary and final right-of-way plans, and this will adjust that project scope. Recommendation is approval of the motion.
A motion to approve, to approve the motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement amendment with Choice One Engineering for the Springdale Road Sidewalk Project for $29,500.
I will second it.
Any discussions?
Upon seeing this last week, Mr. Weckbach, I mentioned that they should clean up their salutation at the beginning. And
Dear Weckbach.
it should be administrator or something. I'm sure they're going to do fine work, and it's just somehow that got out of their office like that. So if you're watching Choice One, work on your letter writing skills.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Board. The next few items are in the Development Department. First item, as an update, as David is walking to the podium, we received the bond from the property owners actually today, had legal review it, and they were okay with it. So assuming that that is satisfactory and you all don't need anything else from me at this time, I can move forward with signing that contract, and we can move forward in that regard.
Do you need a motion from us or just?
Do you need a
Do
motion to
not
take
need
this
any
out?
action from you all. You all have previously authorized me to sign the contract, contingent on receiving an adequate bond
Okay.
for $15,000. So,
On this date, yeah, it says it wasn't.
yep.
Okay.
So when the packet was posted on Friday, we didn't have that. As of this moment, we now have that.
And the contract's similar to the one on Capstan, correct?
It is borderline identical.
Identical, perfect,
Borderline.
perfect.
All right, Board, got just a couple items here. Request a motion for the Board of Trustees to set a public hearing for July the 11th at 7 p.m. for Zoning Commission case ZA 2023-08. This is Blue Rock Senior Living Center, and they're making a zoning map amendment from R5 to PDM, and we recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion that we set a public hearing for July 11th, 2023 at 7 p.m. for Zoning Commission case ZA 2023-08 Blue Rock Senior Living Center. The reason is a zoning map amendment from R5 to PDM.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Sure. Just for everyone, what is the difference between R5 and PDM?
Well, R5 would be residential.
Which is how that property's been for a very long time.
Correct. And so it is being requested that it be changed to planned development mixed. So the M would be the mixed part where they are going to use some office space, the potential in the future to have medical services for the residents that'd be provided right there on site. And so that mixed use of residential and medical service is what the PDM would cover.
And I'll certainly support setting a public hearing, but as we've always said, I never get a chance to talk to the other two trustees. I would ask them to take a drive down Semlo.
Right, that's what I was just going to tell him, to ask, to put where the location is, since it's the name, we should put a direction to where it actually is.
It's back on Semlo, which is immediately north of Hyde's Bowling Lanes, and then St. James Athletic Field, and then Semlo, which is a sort of a dead-end residential, unimproved street without sidewalks or whatever. But yes, so anyone that wants to come speak to that issue, please be here on July 11th, contingent on us setting a meeting.
And that is previously a,
Convent?
yeah, I didn't know if it was still a convent or it was a convalescent for nuns. I couldn't remember if it's.
It was owned by the Archdiocese,
right.
and it's changed hands twice.
Right.
It's also one of those things that's generated a few phone calls, so I'll
Right.
be looking forward to hearing about it more on July 11th.
Any discussion, Matt?
Nope.
Okay.
It was unanimously approved recommended to the Board of Trustees by the Zoning Commission. So.
Okay.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Next item, very similar. This is a motion for the Board of Trustees to set a public hearing for July the 11th at 7 p.m. for Zoning Commission case ZA 2023-09. This would be a major amendment to the preliminary and final development plan, case 2005-06, Cly Mowers. Cly, okay, I got that right. And it is a zoning map amendment as well from R3 to PDB.
But can I?
And
sorry.
so this is going to be for corner of, I guess you could say, Old Colerain / Struble at Colerain Avenue. So Cly is under contract for the Wawa gas station, fueling station that would be there. And so the Zoning Commission took this case up as well. When they voted, it was 1 in favor and 4 against, recommending approval. And so that they recommended denial. So the next step in this process, since it did generate a lot of public interest, particularly from the residents on Rayan. So this case will come before the Board of Trustees that makes the final decision after they hold a public hearing. And that, again, this motion would be to set that public hearing on July the 11th, same evening. Now, addendum would be that a lot of the concern was not only from us as a staff and administration, but from the residents, that there was virtually no public engagement from Wawa and asking the community, what do you want? How does this comply with the comprehensive plan? Does it fit the land use plan? So immediately after the Zoning Commission hearing, if not the same evening, the next day, they were on the phone and email saying that they did fail to engage the public. And so from now, likely until then, until July the 11th, there'll be some public engagement opportunities. We expect the public hearing to be postponed on that evening so that it can be pushed back to the August 8th Board of Trustees meeting. And that would grant additional time for a proper amount of public engagement, and then to work for the administration to be able to work with the developer on this fueling station so that we can hear the public, understand what they want, and then potentially reimagine what that looks like and come back with a different plan. So that's kind of the way it's trending right now.
So I'm going to motion for the Board of Trustees to set a public hearing for July 11th, 2023 at 7 p.m. for Zoning Commission Case ZA 2023-09, Major Amendment to PDP/FDP regarding Case ZA 2005-006, Clean Motors and Zoning Map Amendment from R3 to PDB.
And I'll second it to get that to the floor for discussion. So are you saying you're going to want another public hearing in August?
So some things to bear in mind the way our zoning resolution is written, and I'm reading this from the actual process here. Upon receipt of recommendation from Zoning Commission, the Board of Township Trustees shall set a time for a public hearing on such proposed amendments. The date of the public hearing shall not be more than 30 days after the date of the receipt of the recommendation from the Zoning Commission. So we're kind of limited in terms of when we have to have that initial public hearing. Wawa, as the applicants, have reached out to us to basically indicate that at that public hearing, they're going to make a request that we continue that public hearing. So because once we have the public hearing, there's then another standard in our zoning resolution that requires action from the trustees within 20 days of that public hearing.
Sorry, how many, 21?
I believe it says 20 days.
Okay.
So
These are business days, I assume, right?
No, just 20.
Okay,
20
calendar.
doesn't differentiate.
Okay.
So having said all of that, an option would be to leave the public hearing open to continue it to the next meeting or to a future meeting, as opposed to closing the hearing at the end of that public conversation. So regardless, though, our zoning rules are pretty clear on requiring that we have this initial public hearing within 30 days.
So walk me through this. If we open up a public hearing on July 11th, and we don't close it, what does that mean for everything, procedurally, for everything that's said after that? That would technically be within the realm of the public hearing.
So I'm not exactly sure how, from a motion standpoint, I believe you would motion to continue the public hearing to another date as opposed to motioning to close the public hearing. I'll have to refresh some of my old county memories. We did this quite a bit at Hamilton County, where we would open up a public hearing and then continue it to a future meeting. Yes, and Robert rules are not our official adopted rules of our board, but they are our guidelines that.
But they do have something about continuing, and in fact,
yes,
whether it becomes midnight or not is an issue in some, which isn't going to apply tonight, obviously.
Well, if we stay here past 11:59, then we have the question of whether or not that's a new board meeting on a new day. So.
So you think, just so procedurally, so I understand this, you think that we could continue the public hearing, and that would obviously give residents and those both for and against more time to make their point.
Yeah, we'll get legal counsel to give us the exact language that we would need to do to motion to do this all properly and orderly. And if it turns out that we can't, we're still obligated to open the public hearing within the 30 days, so that kind of limits us anyway.
And is a continued hearing, would it then have to be noticed?
As a public hearing, that's another question that we can ask legal.
But you're saying that the 20-day clock starts at the end of a public hearing, and a public hearing perhaps legally could be continued through it can be continued through to another meeting.
Yes. So that's my interpretation. Again, not an attorney, and but the way that our zoning resolution reads is step 7 decision within 20 days after its public hearing, the Board of Trustees shall either adopt or deny the recommendations of the zoning commission or some modification thereof.
Okay, so this was at zoning on June 20th, correct?
Yes.
So just clarified that date when it came out of zoning.
Yeah, so it seems like we're really walking a thin line here, so I would want to be, I would want to be absolutely 100% sure from a legal point of view, because I feel that we are just right there.
Yep. Regardless, I believe that based off of our zoning, we are required to have that public hearing on July 11th.
I agree with that 1,000%.
That's not the issue. The issue comes if we don't close the meeting that day.
Yeah, and now, because the way it reads, when it says 20 days from the public hearing, it doesn't say from the end of, it doesn't say from the beginning of. I don't know what it means.
And I think this is where making sure that we're working with the applicant is important, because oftentimes the folks that are liable to take you to court over a matter like this are the applicants if you're not following your procedures properly. And that's why we'll make sure to work with legal to get everything buttoned up and 100% ready to go on the 11th.
And you know, with all due respect to the applicant, I'm also, my concern is for the people that can't afford the attorney, the neighborhood that they feel that they've gotten a fair shake as well. Because I think that the longer this, I would think, if I'm sitting in their shoes, I wouldn't want it to go out longer. So I just want to make sure that that we've cut everything covered, because I think this is going to be a pretty contentious issue, and I want to make sure that we walk the line.
Yeah, and there's nothing that says that we have to continue a public hearing. I mean, the board can vote to close the hearing, and then the board could vote at the July 25th meeting to take action. I mean, that is all within the realm of possibilities as well. And I would suggest, if that's the route that we go, that on that night of July 11th, we make it clear that we're taking action on July 5th or 25th, so that Wawa knows whatever public engagement they're wanting to do, their time is ticking, and it's ticking very fast.
Yeah. Okay. My last point on this is I think that this gives the opportunity for some leverage for the citizens there, and that's important too. But in whether or not that I would want to close a public hearing or not close a public hearing isn't really something I would be able to predict in advance. I would have to use the context of what happened in the public hearing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. I'm sorry to dominate that. Go ahead.
And while it's still under discussion, they are contemplating changing it from R3 to PD-B. And it seems to me, in my long memory, that when Lowe's went in, and before that Yacht Club, or I think Yacht Club was first and Lowe's was
first,
second.
Walmart was second, Lowe's was third.
Originally, Target was going to go up there.
It was Lowe's and Target with the Midland
Those of us that
Group.
have been
Yes.
here a very long time. I remember the flavor of the day was that would be as far north as it went, and some of the folks that I've heard from already have been back on Rayanne long enough to recall that as well. So it should be an animating conversation that evening, and I'm looking forward to it. So
All of Cly is not zoned R, residential.
No, it's just
It's
that
partial.
house
That's what
that's
people
there.
have to understand. It's partial. It's only the small piece that needs to be rezoned, correct?
So Cly owns interesting pieces there. There are 3 parcels. One is on Old Colerain at the corner
Right.
of Colerain, and then next to it is that small residence. And then there is, as you come south on Colerain Avenue, there's a much larger piece. I believe there used to be a gas station there.
Yes, there was.
That piece is significantly larger, and that's what is north of Rayanne. That piece is not part of this new PD. So that will not be developed with Wawa's proposal.
I'm sorry, where is that?
The corner of Rayanne and Colerain used to be a gas station.
there's some
years
big
ago.
concrete blocks
Yeah.
sitting there right now to keep
I had
people.
my cars working.
You would
there
never
years
know
ago.
it if you never knew there was a gas
So that's
station.
the other brownstone location. So the old boat in that area, there's 2 brownstones.
It's a gravel lot. And then you got Cly, the painters, and then you have the Cly Motors. And that goes all the way down Old Colerain and their entrance to get into the facility.
Okay.
They have a big.
It's worth
big
it's
whole
worth
lot.
driving up and looking at.
Yeah. Okay. I was.
And
That's.
It really affects it backs up to 6 houses on the right-hand side to Rayanne, the property.
When I was told by a resident there that there's 2 brownstones in the area, then the one would be BP, the old BP, which is now Carlot, and the second would be where you're speaking of?
Right.
I'm not sure.
It was not a BP.
Yeah, there's no.
It was not a BP.
I don't know if it's BP
And I would
or
just
whatever it was.
caution too on speaking too much on the case before it's been presented and public testimony has been provided on any front.
Yeah, no, somebody just in a letter said there are 2 brownstones. I'm trying to figure out where these, if the 2 exist and where they are. And I assumed that the one was the old BP. Am I wrong in that?
Well, there is a
behind it
BP
there
on
alone.
It was
Colerain
not,
Avenue.
never a BP.
Okay.
I've been out there for
There is
37
a former
years.
BP on Colerain
Right, it's a
Avenue.
car lot.
But it is next to, it is across the street,
It's Stalin's.
and it's next to Stalin's. It's in the front yard of Stalin's.
Right, I'm talking about the browns. Which 2 are brownstones?
I'm gonna
Meaning
get
that they have
Brownfield.
brownfield, yeah,
That would
brownstone,
be,
yeah. Sorry.
They could be referencing the BP station.
Okay.
Car connection,
Yeah.
and then the corner of Rayanne and Colerain.
Which is a gravel lot.
Okay, which used to be a.
In deference to Mr. Weckbach's comments, I think there's some validity to that. I'd say just all 3 of us on your own time, just familiarize yourself
I'm
with the
very
site.
familiar with it.
Me too.
Yes.
Yep. Right.
No other discussion.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
It's never taken that long to discuss setting a meeting. A yes.
Mr. Wallach?
Yes.
All right, I'm just going to take a small moment here, point of privilege, and just make sure that listeners, viewers saw the circle email that Helen put out this week relative to the Land Bank Home Repair Program. And so our website has this information available. So in a nutshell, this is assistance to eligible single and 2-family occupied homes. And so the Land Bank is going to provide up to a $15,000 facade grant to the homeowner to fix up the front of their homes. Okay, there's a few guidelines that they have to qualify for. They have to have the right to repair the house and own that. They have an income at or below 80% AMI, which is about $76,400 for a household of 4. It requires the applicant must require exterior repair to preserve the home's value and meet local zoning building codes, be current on real estate taxes and their mortgage payments, and then the homeowners must be a homeowner living in the property for the last 10 years. So again, our website has that available. It's a great opportunity. Very specifically, the region had that. It's at Adams and Pippin. Yes, that's right. Adams and Pippin. There it is. Okay. It's in Northbrook on streets northwest of Adams and Pippin roads that need financial work. Okay? So check that out on our website. Great opportunity to get some help from the Land Bank to fix up your home. Make Northbrook look better.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miller. The next item will be presented by Tiffany Mays.
Welcome back.
The next item is a resolution authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with a natural gas supplier for gas aggregation for a period not to exceed 36 months at the rate less than 0.839 cents per centum cubic feet, or CCF is how I'll reference that in the reading of this. Information on this item can be found on page 59. And just to recap, in August of 2022, the Township Administrator entered into an agreement with EAP Energy for the supply of gas for all Township residents at a rate of $0.83 CCFs for a period of 24 months. The township is now reviewing the market, and there's an opportunity to blend and extend this rate for an additional 12 months at a lower cost to all participants in the aggregation program. This resolution would provide the administrator the authority to sign a new agreement once terms are reached that are more favorable than the one that currently exists. Should that occur, the administrator will bring forward the signed contract as a consent item on future agendas, and staff recommendation is approval of the resolution.
So I'll motion to approve the resolution authorizing Township Administrator to execute an agreement with a natural gas supplier for gas aggregation for a period not to exceed 36 months at a rate less than $0.839 per CCF.
I'll second. Discussion?
And this is the same gas that a couple years ago, on our last contract that was approved in 2019, was 39 cents. And it has more than doubled, and as I've said at plenty of meetings as this issue has come and gone, that is a result of our federal national energy policy, and that policy is just financially devastating to residents, businesses, and everybody in between. And hopefully we can get that rate down a little bit, but that was less than half that 3 years ago.
And I didn't check what was Duke's CCF cost to.
So I believe at the next meeting, Tiffany's going to be providing an update on the performance of aggregation.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to, so we're still below.
Because Duke rate fluctuates
Right,
month
I
by
didn't
month.
look- yeah,
At
right.
this point in time, I would suspect with it being the summer, Duke's probably a little cheaper at this moment in time.
Okay, okay.
Just as a point to kind of educate folks on this, because this comes up a lot, why do we go for aggregation? A long time ago, in a galaxy far away, the township voted to aggregate these. So it is actually a requirement that we offer that, according to the vote. You negotiate with providers to get the best price. It is an opt-out, so you'll receive something and you have to opt out of it. It is not. It's usually it's going to be lower than Duke. That's why you negotiate. You're not going to negotiate it higher than Duke. It's not affiliated with the people that go door to door, that call your house. These are folks that will use different types of strong arm tactics to sign you up with what might be a very cheap rate, but then you got to get them out of your life, and it costs a lot of money. And that's not the case with this. Technically, you could go on and off aggregation 10 times in a month with this, and it's free to do so. Not the
To opt in and
opt in to opt out. Yeah, yeah. And just so people understand, that's why we go get this aggregation. I've seen all kinds of really strange explanations of this, but you guys, the voters, asked for it, and we're providing it. If you still don't want it, you can opt out and go with the Duke rate. So keep an eye out, because it'll come in an envelope that you might be tempted to throw aside, but that's how it's done. And I know that we get things out on Circle on this, but it's a very confusing issue, and I think the waters are muddied by the fact that you have some people who don't have the best interests of anyone at heart going door to door trying to rip people off.
I have no other comments.
No comments.
Ms. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Tiffany. The next items on the agenda I will take. So the first one up tonight is a resolution adopting the 2024 tax budget. So included in your packet on pages 63 and 64 and 65 is the drafted tax budget for 2024. As a reminder, this is the first process annually in actually getting the budget started. We have to send this down to the auditor so that they actually collect our property taxes and other taxes on our behalf. And I would recommend approval of the 2024 tax budget.
A motion to approve the 2024 tax budget is provided in the board packet.
And I will second it to get it to the floor.
Okay, discussion?
Yes, in response to a citizen comment earlier, under lighting assessment, it shows 165,359 for the projected expenditure for 2024, and then by the end of the year, there would be 152,321.32 left in the account. So there is, I think you corrected that before, there is a figure on there. And what we have in the agenda that I'm looking at on the screen here, I don't, are you?
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing.
And this is what was sent the other day. And then on the law enforcement trust, I'm sorry, the police district is what I'm looking at. It shows a, let me move the screen a little bit. The January 1st balance in the account would be $14,028,201 with expenditures of $12,195,000, leaving a positive balance at the end of next year of $1,832,975. And I think that'll become part of the next discussion. So there is a positive balance 18 months from now of $1,832,000, you know, subject to change. So you're going to show the lighting assessment up there on the screen.
So lighting assessment here on the screen, 166 for current balance at the end of the year projected, 151 for estimated receipts for next year, total available resources of 317, projected expenses of 165, leaving a remaining balance of 152.
Is it the numbers below where it says lighting assessment?
It is not.
Okay, then
If you go up to the very top, you see it flows down and across. So as you flow across on the line, like for general fund 12, and then I think that, I can't read that from here, but 5, and then
542.
yeah, about 7. So and that flows for each line all the way through. So 317, 117 to 152.
So account or fund number 2402, then that is on the next page.
Nope, 2402 flows across this way right here, just like all the other ones do. Straight across.
It says balance, and there's nothing above it. Oh, you know what, I don't have the other page, I'm sorry.
Mr. Weck, back on this, just because this is a personal, another trigger of mine, this opioid settlement.
Yep.
Is that a restricted fund, or what's it restricted to?
Uses related to the opioid epidemic.
Police and
So,
fire would be fine?
to some extent and some degree. I believe the rules are still being completely decided at the state level on how it can be used. One rule was, proposed rule was that we could qualify prior expenses related to fighting the opioid epidemic. So we did go back and pull like Narcan figures and things like that. And so we could say that all this money is going to that and then use that to offset prior costs. But I think right now we're kind of waiting for the balance to build a little bit and to get some more clarity from the state before we budget and anticipate.
The balance to build a little bit?
Yep.
Meaning the opioid settlement balance?
The balance of the fund, yes.
Okay, so have we already received 12,000?
I believe we've received that amount to date and should continue to receive about that amount annually, year over year.
For how long?
Yeah, how many years?
10 years, so we're looking
All
at
right, I'm shocked that we actually got a payment. Because the early folks in.
Voted against that.
Because I think the 12,000 is a joke to offer a year, but I didn't think they'd pay anything, so.
Well, I'm glad to see we got it also.
Yeah, I am too.
And a significant portion of that's going to the state, which is then being funneled into a regional group that is deciding on how that's going to be sent out, and that whole committee and group has not completely been formed, so there's a lot of moving parts to that settlement.
One of the original offenders to this actually spun off their opioid division, bankrupted it, and then didn't pay anything after the agreement, so. A bird in the hand. No other comments on the budget, tax budget?
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item on the agenda is a resolution for potential ballot language for a property tax levy for the police department in the amount of 3 mills. As a reminder, back at the meeting on May 9th, we had a special meeting where we talked about the long-term needs and forecast of the police department. We've had several discussions at board meetings since then, including numerous amounts of community feedback. So this item is the recommended ballot language if you all were to decide to move forward with a 3 mil levy. I don't believe we're asking for any action from the board at this time. This is intended to be a first reading only and for potential discussion purposes if there's any desire.
Yeah, and this is what would, I'm sorry. Did you?
Go ahead.
This is what would go on the, let me,
Yes, so there's a resolution in the packet.
right, it shows our total valuation at $1,357,660,550. A 3 mil levy would cost $105 for every $100,000 of value, is the way I read that. And it's dated May 30th. And as you said earlier, it looks like that would generate $4,073,000. And for clarification, that would be over what period of time?
Indefinitely.
And annually?
Yes, annually.
Indefinitely. So that would put so by the end of '24, using the budget figures in the previous item that we approved, that would leave us with a balance of close to $6 million in the police fund. About $5.9 million, about a little over $5.9 million.
So the tax budget actually contemplates a 3 mil levy as part of it. It had a negative balance in the police fund for the tax budget, and we spoke to the auditor's office, and they would not accept a tax budget that showed a negative number in
Okay,
any
so
fund.
that's already in there.
So a 3 mil levy is contemplated there. The total anticipated need for the department over a 5-year period is $6.3 million per year. So that's why we have various levy amounts in there, and the 3 mils, we would have to have some conversations about ways to solve that gap.
Whether it was through
General fund,
TIF or general fund, which shows
TIFs,
general fund shows an end balance of $6,986,000, and I realize some of that's probably restricted, but
General fund, none of it is restricted. General fund is wholly unrestricted.
so we could use some of that, almost $7 million, to offset.
That is one source, and there are programmatic discussions that we could have as well. So
And that's the one I recommended. So I don't know if the other two have a comment or go on to the next one.
Talking to Chief Cordy and going over the budgets, that if we did a 3 mil, we'd be out of money after 2024. Is that correct?
no, so we would still have dollars left at the end of 2024 if we did a 3 mil, but we would likely need to be either going back to the ballot in 2024 for 2025,
Right.
or solving that through either reserves in the general fund, or reducing programs in general fund or general funded programs. So that would be, things like parks and services, or looking at our staffing allocations and things like that. So that's sort of the long-term beyond the 1 year look.
So let me just confirm some things that you just said to Mr. Unger to make sure I understand correctly. So I'm looking at the page 63 of the projected tax budget on item 2081 Police District. The $1,832,975.43 anticipates a 3 mil levy.
Yes.
So without the 3 mil levy, we're talking like negative 2, yeah. Under item 1000, account number, projected balance 12/31/24, with the general fund, it's a $6,986,042.87. Those are just leftover general fund dollars?
Yeah, so when you look at the estimated receipts, the general fund in 2024 is estimated at this moment in time to bring in about $5.4 million in revenue. And it is estimated to spend, and that's under the projected expenditures, 5.4. So general fund isn't expected to really oscillate up or down right now over the 5-year period. So that balance of 6.9 is what is anticipated to be there as a potential stopgap.
So each year for the next 5 years?
So if you pull down on that 6.9 in year 1, then there would be, let's say you take $1 million off.
4.9. If you spent $2 million a year out of that and moved it into the police fund.
It would be 4.9, yep. And then it would be 2.9, and then in year 3 it'd be 0.9, and then in year 4 you would be negative.
Okay, and how much is required to keep as a minimal balance in our general fund?
We have internal policies that have been adopted by the board in our financial portion of the policy book, but that's your own set rules. You can change those at any time. Your general fund balance really serves as your backstop for your credit ratings and things like that. So good chance that we would be downgraded if we started to draw down significantly on reserves. But the credit rating agencies tend to look at our entire reserves, not just our general fund. And so, you know, we've got total anticipated reserves across all funds of about, it looks like $21 million, which is relatively healthy given the budget that we have.
So, and just to go back to the original question, when Mr. Unger stated that's $6,986,000. That's not annually. That's just what we'll have left over at 24. Yep. Okay. In the last budget, 2022, we had $3.9 million left over, and there was only $400,000 of that was general fund, according to my data. Those were more restricted funds.
Yeah, so most of our underspend occurs in the restricted funds, just given the fact that out of a $45 million budget, only $5 million of it is our general fund. So
what accounts for the big number at the end of 24? Just because we also keep that reserve?
Yeah, so the big thing that had been driving underspend in 2020, or sorry, rephrase that again. Are you saying 2022 or 2024?
So I'm sorry, in 2022, we had, the general fund was $400,000 under budget. Yes. In 2024, it's $6.9 million. Yep. Does that account for the fact that, am I not accounting in 2022 for a reserve fund?
This does not reflect a potential reserve fund. That is correct.
Okay.
For capital.
So that 400 that we're under in 2022 would be much closer to the 6.9 million.
It'd be part of that 6.9.
Okay.
Yes.
And where is, I think this is my last question, and I'll leave you alone here. First point, well, two things. First, point out the recycling incentive. We have spent an awful lot of money in there for the litter gatherers. And every Thursday I wheel out that green barrel full of my Amazon boxes and stuff like that. So I encourage other people to do so too, because you're helping pay for the people that are picking up the litter. But the other question that I had is, where is, I saw it a minute ago, the reserve, we established the reserve fund.
Yes, the reserve fund is an accounting exercise that we have on our books that is not included in the tax budget.
Gotcha.
So that's separate.
Yep. What would that be after?
That would, in theory, be part of that $6.9 million general fund number.
All right, that's what I'm getting. So that's like 1.8 million, 1.5 million at the.
1.3 was
okay.
the number we had.
So the 1.3. So let me.
And that's another policy level question. I think that was why we were intentional about not necessarily creating a fund and then locking those dollars up entirely. Is we understand that there are going to be some of these ongoing fiscal needs, and that's the nature of the way levies operate in Ohio. Is they generate the same dollar figure year over year in perpetuity. Unfortunately, expenses don't stay the same level year over year, and that's mainly driven by labor costs. So the majority of what we do is people. We have, probably 70 to 80% of our budget is personnel, and so we live in an environment where we have collective bargaining agreements and things like that guarantee wages and what have you, and wages tend to not stay stagnant, and for that reason, you have revenue that's flat, but expenses that increase, and so eventually you have to go back out to the voters. And if you're sizing a levy to be a 5-year levy, that in theory means you're going back out every 5 years. And if you're doing that for both your police and fire department, that's 2 levies that you're contemplating every 5 years.
So let me get back to the minutia level of this then. So account number 1,000, which is that general fund, the 6.9 million, we'll call it, even if it's almost 7 million. That includes the 1.3 million that we set aside for reserves, so that we are going to use that for capital reserve funds, so that in the future we don't have to bond things out, or we can pay cash.
Yep.
Okay, and that anticipates no extra additional money going to that.
Correct.
Okay.
What were you going to do with the TIF money then, if that wasn't going into that capital reserve fund?
So the TIF funds are going to start coming in earnest and probably in larger amounts to be available for capital uses starting in 2028, just based off of the way that things ramp up with the construction cycles and with the way that the taxes are going to trickle in over time. And so we had that TIF plan that we had mocked up, I believe it was mid-year last year, and it really contemplated no additional new dollars for capital until then. I don't believe we had anything specific on that TIF plan dedicated toward the construction of a new police facility. However, again, these are policy level decisions. Some of the other items on that plan we could decide are, should be pushed back to later dates in order to, say, do a new police facility, or, maybe we decide that, hey, facilities aren't the thing that we want to use the TIFs on. We want to use those on cruisers. And then we offset an operating expense that is currently built into our police department and into the levy with TIFs. So those are policy level decisions that we'll be able to make, but I don't believe that we're there. And given that I don't foresee that happening until 2028, we have this 5-year period that we have to find a solution for.
So for me, there's two questions here that need to be addressed. There needs to be other streams of revenue, which I've talked to you about, number one. And number two, there needs to be an alternative way to provide these services, police and fire calls. We can't escalate to catch all the police and fire calls we get. We're going to have to change the way that we deliver those in order to stay ahead of this, or it's not sustainable, I don't believe.
And going back to constructing a police building, as I've said in previous meetings, that's a fine idea. I don't want to construct anything until these 2 firehouses are done, and because I don't, even though we've agreed on a maximum final cost, I still see out there that something is going to come up, and I don't want to stretch ourselves that far out, so I would not support, I won't consider doing that until the firehouses are complete and we've sold those other 2 properties that we're going to get away from, and that would probably go into I don't know what we would do with the revenue from those 2 buildings. It would be something to put in either the capital reserve fund or somewhere. I'm sure the fire department would like to have it go right back into their fund, but we've spent some of the COVID money on the firehouses, so that money can go back in the general fund or somewhere.
Yep, and those are discussions we'll be able to have when we get to that.
As we've always said, we never get a chance to talk about these things, so I'm glad to have the discussion with the other trustees.
Well, I just want for the public, if you have a $200,000 house at the 3 mil levy, you're looking at $17 a month in a difference of a payment, because I know we're all very stretched thin because of gas, food, the inflation level. At a $200,000 house at the 4.6, it's $27 a month. At the 4.99, it is $29 a month for a $200,000 house. I just wanted to show the public what about a $200,000 house is going to cost you with this levy.
And as the speaker said earlier, there's a bunch of other stuff coming down the pike also, and I don't doubt that the school district's coming back.
Oh, well, they've got a lot of fight on them to get
I know theirs didn't pass, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be coming back, which to the person sitting out in one of the houses in the township, that all affects them. And I realize we've got our thing to do, but to our homeowners and property owners here, it does get to be quite a ever-increasing burden, and I appreciate the fact that we all 3 appreciate that. So,
Well, I did have a comment from somebody that they would move out because the taxes are too high, but if we don't have our police and safety and we have crime, people are going to move out.
we're all 3 all for
I mean, we're all
police and
for
safety.
keeping this police and safety for this board, for our residents.
I think the biggest issue we face in the next 4 to 5 years is crime.
Absolutely, it's not going
And that's
anywhere.
just not even a question. I think that voters would feel more comfortable with a tax levy if they felt that there was an end game, and the end game wasn't another tax levy at the end of that.
Right, exactly.
And that's where we need to get as a board and have the vision to try to figure that out.
We need vision, not just a Band-Aid on a
Right,
solution.
that's
right
exactly
now.
right. I mean, I don't think we'd even have this discussion. It's like, all right, we don't think we're going to need this again. But clearly, the escalating call numbers, the escalating salary, we're going to need it. You know, we got to figure something out to deliver this differently.
$500,000 just for Motorola.
But Motorola's,
I mean,
yeah.
people don't realize how much these things cost, or what onboarding a police officer, our
Right.
new cruisers, how much they're charging us.
Yeah, we're buying cruisers from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I mean, it just is, it's horrible what.
That's the home of the Steelers. We should never buy anything from
Well,
that place.
and people at home are experiencing the similar
Exactly.
cost
So
increases.
we're
to what
trying to do what's right by you and keeping this affordable.
I know, I mean, people think that we just sign, and I mean, this keeps us up at night because that $450,000 from Motorola's, I mean, think about, 1,900 firemen died on 9/11 because they didn't have radios that worked. I can't put my head against the pillow thinking about, just use the radios you got, use your cell phone. I mean, that's just not an option.
So what's the next step? This comes back at the next meeting. You brought this up for an item for discussion?
So this item, as well as the next two items on the agenda, which is same item just with the 4.65 mil rate and then the 4.99 mil rate, will all come back at the next trustee meeting. My hope is that we take action at that meeting. That would allow us time to get the language down to the Board of Elections. And if for some reason we use a "the" instead of a the Board of Elections could correct us on that and allow us an opportunity to potentially formally correct that at the final meeting in July. My hope is that we get it completely right on the first try, and we don't have to do that, but it's always nice to build in a little bit of cushion if we need to.
And to Mr. Verhoff's point, I think we've provided now, I mean, that's at the very beginning of this, I'm like, every meeting, I want that in there. And it's been probably 4 or 5 meetings. Could you please repeat from my notes? I missed it. For a $200,000 home?
$17 per month for a 3 mil levy, $27 a month for the 4.65, excuse me, and $29 for the 4.99, based
Okay.
on a $200,000 valuation.
All right, thank you.
And those of us that don't have property tax bills that are built into a mortgage, I actually write a check for mine, and it was just short of $2,500, the check that was due June 20th, and that's twice a year, so that's about $5,000 a year for my home at the current rates. And my house is 49 years old, and that's about $470 to $480 a month, every month for the rest of my life, and until I die, I'll need to pay that. But that's not just for police and fire, that's for everything. So when we talk about $17 a month or $27 a month or whatever, that's just a part of the whole big.
And 70% of that is Northwest School District, right?
A huge part of it is. But I mean, it's just everything, and all these agencies that are out there, 10 or 12 different line items on your property tax bill. But in my personal case, and I'm not a wealthy man and I'm not poor, I'm a middle income person, but $480 a month, every month for the rest of my life if I want to stay in my house, and that's just for the taxes, and it's not for, the gas and electric and everything else. I mean, I appreciate the fact that we're all three very conscious of these just always incremental increases in the cost of living here. And I love police just as much as anybody, and that is the very last thing that's standing between us and chaos. And you can look at some other communities, and I don't know who the third best police department is in the county, but the first best and the second best is Colerain Township and Colerain Township. And I truly believe that. If you look at the problems and the things you hear on the news, for some reason, a lot of that stops when you get here, because you have 3 trustees that are very much in support of what we're doing. We're just arguing about money right now. We're not arguing about providing quality police services. So that was fun, wasn't it?
I think it was a good, hearty debate, and I think it also applied to the next 2 items. So I think that we just need to read those into the record.
Yep. So the next item is a first reading of potential ballot language resolution for a 4.65 police mill levy. And the last item of new business is a resolution for ballot language for a police levy in the amount of 4.99 mils, which is also intended to be a first reading.
And those are all published in our agenda, and I encourage all those in the audience and those watching to read through them. And I think we've done our first reading.
And you've done the levy tool that you did for fire, you've done for police, and has that been out on a circle, or is that?
We have not put that out on Circle. There have been a lot of changes in state law around what can be published by the community and what cannot, so we're erring on the side of caution.
I got you.
right now.
After we choose a levy, if we choose a levy rate, can it be put out, or?
There are things that you all as independent electeds can do. There are things that the staff is able to do, and they're different, so we can talk individually about that.
All right.
So,
And you do bring up a final point for me on this. In 2020, when we talked about a fire levy, Chief Cook had asked for 6.5 mils, and that included, money for firehouse, money for a new engine, money for operations. About 3.5 of those mills were for those improvements, and the other 3 mills was for operating funds. And at the time, I had suggested, well, let's just do the 3 mills for operating and just see how this works out. And, that was right in COVID, and nobody knew what was going to happen. And the fire department somehow managed to move some money around, and other things happened, and grants came in, and that 3 mil levy for the fire department seemed to work out 3 years later, and they've got a healthy balance here. And granted, it's 2 different departments with 2 different cost experiences, but it does show that with a lesser amount, sometimes different things can happen and it can work. So,
And it also shows that Mr. Unger predicted COVID.
Well, and per that 3 million.
It was during COVID. I didn't predict it, but now that you bring that up, as it turns out, it was.
I'm going to log into my FanDuel account. I could use some predictions for tonight's games.
It was all traced back to that just was released by the federal government.
yeah.
It's all out of a Chinese lab.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say, per that, when I was talking to the chief, when you just did the 3 million with the fire engine that we just paid for, cost about another $700,000. Was that about? 780 difference. So for not putting in the levy 3 years later, we paid $780,000 more for a fire. So there are some significant costs to that also.
And that was Chief Cook that brought that up, Chief Walls. I think we've talked it out.
I think so.
okay. I have no business on the agenda tonight for the board, so the last items are consent items, and I'll read those in for you all. The first is a promotion in the fire department. That would be Captain Ryan Frank to the position of battalion chief at a rate of $36.08 per hour. A promotion in the fire department of Lieutenant Craig Niehaus to fire captain at a rate of $34.51 per hour. A promotion in the fire department of firefighter Richard Witzkin to fire lieutenant at a rate of $32.94 per hour. We have a new hire of a part-time public educator. That would be Carrie Lerman at $19.50 per hour. A new hire of a firefighter paramedic. That'd be Chris Simpson at $24.72 per hour. A contract that I signed with Silco for camera installations for the 4th of July fireworks at a rate of $5,442. A donation acceptance in the fire department from the Cincinnati Moose Lodge in the amount of $2,351.90. A second donation to the police department from the Cincinnati Moose Lodge in the amount of $2,351.90. And a final donation from Lowe's in the amount of $781.97. And I would recommend approval of all consent items.
I'll motion to approve the consent items A through I is provided in the meeting packet and read aloud by Mr. Weckbeck.
I'll second. And thank you, these Moose Lodges. This is quite a few times they've donated
Yes.
this year. Thank you.
And for clarification, the item from Lowe's was merchandise. It was not cash. So it was some merchandise from the store. And no other comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
So, Mr. Baker, do you have a fiscal office report for us?
No report tonight, Board. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Wetbach, do we need an executive session?
Not that I am aware of.
Thank you. We motion to.
Motion to adjourn?
I second. And we are going to say 9:05 is the official time to,
Need to vote on that.
oh, we have to vote on the adjournment. Oh, I do that every time.
Ms. Ulrich?
Sorry. Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
It's still 9:05. We adjourn. Okay.